Ricky Lambert joins me from the Flow News 24 room, and it's an interesting time for regions, Ricky, because the Australia Regional Institute is meeting in Canberra today and tomorrow, and they're talking about a whole range of issues, including decentralising people into our regional areas to work and to live and to play. But at this time, we see the states not actually consulting as much as they used to with these regional cabinets. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the regional parliamentary sitting came into vogue at the turn of the millennium, so over the last 20 years there's been a spate of them. They started in Victoria, actually. They had a sitting in Ballarat. There's been a number of them since. They've had them in Queensland, and in South Australia we had one in Mount Gambier. There's a bit of history behind all of that. The most recent one was in Townsville in 2019.
Okay, so Townsville is the most recent one in Queensland. How far back do you have to go for a regional cabinet meeting in Victoria?
Yeah, we have to be important to delineate between a parliamentary sitting where all the parliament has to show up and meet, and a cabinet meeting where just the members of the government's cabinet sits there. And there have been those stage-managed meetings that happen throughout regions often, but that's where the government can media manage and control what happens, whereas a parliamentary sitting, it's all out there in the open, what everyone's debating.
Okay, so in Victoria there's one that is being held by Danielle Andrews, and it's in Bright. Is it being held in winter, and is it an opportunity to get a bit of snow skiing in?
That's a very good question. It's in April, and so maybe there'll be a dusting of snow. Certainly the way the weather's gone this year, that could be possible. So, yeah, late April they're having a sitting in Bright, which is the first regional sitting that Danielle Andrews has convened as a Labor government. There was a fair few more under the coalition, but they did start under the Braxton-Brumby regime in Victoria.
Okay. In South Australia, Mount Gambier was the last one, and I think it was back in 2005, and I think there was more politics being played there rather than necessarily listening to the people.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the timing of these, not only the Mount Gambier sitting, but the one that Mike Rann proposed in Whyalla, they all timed quite closely to when an independent had taken a seat off the Liberals, and they were trying to help raise the profile perhaps of someone other than the Liberals advocating for those people in those regions. So Rory McEwen was the local member at the time they had the sitting in Mount Gambier, and Mr Rann said in 2011 he was fancied the idea of having one in Whyalla, which coincided not long after Jeff Brock, independent, beat the candidate for Rob Kerrin's old seat in Frome.
Interesting times. Now, in New South Wales, would Gladys Berejiklian and her popularity at the moment, would she risk a community cabinet meeting or a sitting of the country parliament, given the Nationals and the water problems that they have at the moment? I mean, would they come out into the open and allow Helen Dalton to ask questions of the Nationals at this present point in time?
I think that might be the reason why so far I haven't found any clear evidence that there's a plan for regional sittings for Gladys Berejiklian in the near future. And there's quite a number of significant regional cities in New South Wales where they could easily stage a country parliamentary sitting, or even just an upper house sitting. You look at Victoria, they've got regions assigned for the country areas, like in northern Victoria. There's every reason that those voters should get to see their MPs in their local community debating whatever is going before Parliament. I think they'd be horrified to see how little debate occurs about country issues.
And of course, some will say that the consultation of yesteryear, where the MPs would trudge themselves out into some far-flung place in their state, has been replaced by Zoom and maybe even the Survey Monkey to find out what people really think.
Consultation's a dirty word in politics, because they put out those survey monkeys and they say, well, we've consulted broadly. All they did was post in their own Facebook page to their own fans what they wanted to get from the survey. Very often they knew exactly what they got because it's what they wanted to hear.
All right, it's an interesting one. Ricky, is there time for consultation in the states? Should we be seeing more people from the Parliament to come out into the country areas and host these community cabinet meetings, as we have seen in the past? Well, the Victorian government is going to do so in Bright at the end of April. Will we see it in South Australia and New South Wales? Good question, and one you can follow up the story on flownews24.com.au. Thanks, Ricky.